Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and for today's video, I kind of wanted to let you guys run the show. So on my Instagram, I asked y'all, I go, thinking of doing a mailbag for this week's YouTube video, unless the Bruins hire Marco Sturm. I had a video ready for that based on the previous reportings on Twitter, but it seems like the Bruins are still finding a coach. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all your thoughts and questions in this video. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Now, this first thought comes from, sorry, I don't know how to say your username, but you said that the Bruins need to offer sheet for a young center. Now, I absolutely agree with this. I think that the RFA market is juicier than ever. And even when you look at the center market of young players that could get offer sheeted by the Bruins, you got to take advantage of the potential here. Looking at guys like JJ Peterka, Marco Rossi, I know Morgan Geekie's listed as a center, but he's clearly a winger at this point now. Ryan McLeod, Mason McTavish, Dimitri. The list goes on, and even going down the list from like 10 to 20, Marat Kushnedinov's on this list. But when you look at the when you look at the players on this list, there are so many options in terms of fit for the Bruins. I really like Marco Rossi. He's someone who is kind of falling out with the Minnesota Wild. I don't know if it's a contract thing. I don't know if it's the fact that the Wild don't like their small, skilled players. But when you look at this list, there are so many different ways the Bruins could go, and even then, they could take advantage of some good young talent and bring them onto the team. I mean, even going down this list, a guy like Maverick Bourque, who led the AHL in scoring one year, could potentially be a juicy option for the Bruins to bring on. I know I keep saying it, but when looking at the Dallas Stars situation, they don't have much cap space. They have a lot of veterans that they would like to bring back if you would want to continue to be a conference final contender. And Bourque is someone who at a young age could definitely see a lot more time with the Bruins. So when it comes down to it, you look at what the St. Louis Blues did last year with the Edmonton Oilers, Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, bringing them on, and looking at what the Blues were able to accomplish this season. I think if you bring on a center as a complementary piece, especially offer sheeting them something and putting the pressure on the other team for that, we do have a bit of draft capital now from this 2025 trade deadline. But there are some good names on this list. I really don't want the Bruins to miss out on these guys. And even then, we're not talking centers. Wingers we could even get into, but I won't. I do think we should go for a center. Let me know in the comments which RFA center you guys would want to see, but I do think that they should definitely at least try for one. Now, this next thought comes from James JJ1275. He says, thoughts on the Bruins trading up in the draft for a Misa or Martone? Now, when you look at this NHL draft, it's definitely good that the Bruins got a top 10 pick. Yes, you can say they got botched by the draft lottery because the Islanders moved up, then Utah moved up. But regardless, you have a top 10 pick in what many consider a weaker draft, so it's good that you can get a player who could definitely be a top 6 to middle 6 forward impact. Now, I say forward impact because I don't think the Bruins should prioritize a defenseman. Now, in looking at the top 10, you obviously have Schaefer and Misa. They're the automatic 1 to 2. But when you look at the guys from 3 to 9, it's really interchangeable based on what team could get what. You're going to get one of these guys. You're going to get a player that is going to definitely be an impact guy in a year or two for your roster. At least you hope they make the right selection with that. Would I love to see Porter Martone fall to the Bruins? Definitely. Now, some NHL writers have him falling to us. Some of them have him going to the Chicago Blackhawks at 3rd overall. It really is interchangeable, but no, I don't think that you should make a trade up for Michael Misa. I don't think you have the draft capital or the surplus to be able to make a move of that magnitude. And even then, at the same time, you're still likely to get a pretty good player at 7. So I wouldn't fret this too much because it is the highest draft pick the Bruins have had since 2010 when they took Tyler Seguin 2nd overall. So I wouldn't fret about this too much. Just see who falls to 7 and take best player available. Don't overthink it. Now, this next question comes from Ant Capos, and he says, should the Bruins commit to a rebuild and move off of guys like Zaka and Geekie, or try to add? Now, Zaka and Geekie were just listed on Daily Faceoff's off-season top 20 trade board, and I look at them and I say, I would not trade off of them. Geekie, first off, he's definitely solidified himself as a top 6 winger for the Bruins. He complements well with Lindholm and Pastrnak, and we saw that towards the end of the year. I wouldn't want to move off of him. I'd want to give him a good contract that's long-term and definitely piece him in as that winger to help. And when looking at Pavel Zaka, you also have to say he brings merit. He's a good top six center. Forechecking game that he brings, his ability to cause turnovers in the offensive and the neutral zone. He's a great playmaker as well, and even then, he's a clutch scorer too at times. We saw that this past season and in previous years before. So I really like a guy like Zaka, and especially at his cap hit and his term, he's somebody I definitely want to keep around for the Bruins and see if that fit works out. I wouldn't be so keen on moving Zaka yet. So all in all, I think these guys are definitely outer core pieces and players that you don't really want to move off of, especially considering you don't want to waste David Pastrnak's prime. You still have guys like McAvoy and Lindholm. You still have Jeremy Swayman, who you hope can bounce back. This team has good core players that you want to build around, and those outer core pieces even need some complementary help. Now, this next one kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. Do I think the Bruins should rebuild? But this was from Dallas Meyer. Do you think the Bruins should tank next year for Gavin McKenna? Boy, would you guys love to have that. Now, the Bruins, as I said before, have a really good core of players. Not great, but they can build around that for next season. So do I think that they could definitely tank next year for Gavin McKenna? Well, let's take a look at their draft capital. Now, they have two 2026 draft picks in the first round, and one of those are from the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have their own, but I don't think it's going to fall that far to first overall. Now, this comes from the Brandon Carlo, Fraser Minton draft pick, and I'm looking at this one. 2026 round 1 from Toronto. It's top 5 protected. It slides to 2027 if the Leafs finish within the top 5. So even if the Bruins got a pick that low, I don't think that they'd be able to take a guy like Gavin McKenna unless he slipped far down the list like James Higgins has this year, because James Higgins was consensus number 1 before this year's draft, and he kind of has been slipping since. But regardless, I doubt the Bruins would stink bad enough to pick first overall, and even then, I wouldn't watch a single game of hockey if they stunk this bad. So there's a lot of parameters that go with this singular draft pick, but I doubt that we would be bad enough to tank for Gavin McKenna. So sorry to disappoint there. Now, this one is probably one of my favorite questions from you guys within this video, and it's from Maj21. He says, would you trade Fabian Lysell and a second-round pick for Isaac Howard? Now, let me break this trade down for you guys a bit. Isaac Howard is a gamer and someone who I would love to get, but when looking at the trade package from the Bruins side of things, you also have to think about Fabian Lysell and what they've been doing with them. So after his draft year, when the Bruins select him 21st overall in the first round, he goes to the WHL, plays for Vancouver, and since then, he's just been playing with Providence, and he's been sitting down there. He scored 37 points in his first year with the P Bruins, 50 points last year, and this season 34 again with the P Bruins before getting the final call-up where he did play his first NHL game. I look at Lysell and I say the Bruins have underused him, they've undervalued him, and I look at that added second-round pick and say, Isaac Howard, let's just look at him, for example. Isaac Howard just won the Hobey Baker Award. This guy is an offensive juggernaut. Just scored 52 points in 37 NCAA games with Michigan State. And even then at the World Juniors prior last year, he was above point per game. If you play good in NCAA and college hockey, you're probably going to play pretty effectively at the NHL, AHL level. But when looking at a guy like Isaac Howard, who's having a fallout with the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is something I think the Bruins would definitely want to take advantage of, considering how much they've underused Lysell. I think the value adds up pretty well for this trade, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Bruins do something like this, pulling the trigger and getting a change of scenery for Lysell and giving Isaac Howard a chance to make impact here. Now, this next one comes from Kyle Tuttle. He says, with a healthy team locked in sway, are we one Mitch Mner away from contending? Now, when looking at this current Bruins roster, I don't think that we're one player away from contending, and this is the kind of thing with hockey, right? You look at a team, you need to build a roster full of guys that can complement each other, that can make impacts on certain nights, but that doesn't go without saying you do need your superstar players. And we saw this season that David Pastrnak more than ever was the guy who was carrying the team on the back. Now, yes, you can look at Morgan Geekie's production this year and say, Well, what about him? Well, when you look at the point gap between the top two scorers on every other NHL team, and you look at the Bruins gap, it was pretty significant. But at the same time, Pastrnak needs a little more help. Now, when looking at Mitch Mner, he's going to want the bag. He's going to at least want a $12 to $13 to $14 million deal. Now, yes, you can look at his stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs and say that it's been lackluster in terms of playoff success. But I look at Mitch Mner and I say maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe he can make an impact on a different team. You look at what other teams have done when they make these superstar additions. It does help them when they want to build around those kinds of players. Is he going to want to come here, or is he going to want to go to a low pressure market in a southern area like Florida or Vegas and just play out there and ball out? He could do that. He could come to Boston and he could play better. That would be really funny to see and something I wouldn't mind inviting in. But at the same time, it doesn't take one player to become a contender. And when you look at this Bruins roster, I just say in general, they got a lot to figure out. So, is Mitch Mner their one piece away from contending? Probably not. They got to make some building moves. But it would be cool to see Marner come on the team. And this last one comes from Hoist Farah 2. He says, do you think the Bruins are holding out on hiring a coach to get Misha Donskov? Now, Misha Donskov is definitely the cream of the crop in terms of the coaching candidates that have been in rumors with the Boston Bruins. But I definitely do think that, and I said this on my Instagram, Kevin Paul DuPont had mentioned this reminder. He said that the Star season just ended and they could be holding out for it. But also at the same time, they could make a head coaching hire the second I post out this YouTube video. Regardless, though, I do think that he's definitely the best option for the Bruins head coach. Originally, I had heard, or it was said, that he was out of the race because the Bruins were out of looking at playoff head coaches. But then again, the Stars are out of the playoffs, so you never know. But they could make a coaching hire, as I said, as this video comes out. So all in all, there's a lot of excitement and potential that comes with this Boston Bruins offseason. And in general, I just can't wait to see what they do potentially with free agency, with the draft, with all these trades. You guys definitely got my brain going with all these thoughts. So keep them coming as we do these mailbags. Let me know what you thought of this YouTube style video and if you want to see more mailbag videos coming. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you legends in the next one. Bye-bye.